This is DeBunked TV.
What is truth?
They are two different claims.
So, like, truth is basically subjective.
This is a worldview thing.
No fossilized eyeballs, trust me.
This is DeBunked TV. I'm Bub, that's Carl. Carl, my friend, how are you?
I'm a blessed man, dude.
You say that every time, and I agree. You're a blessed man. Why do we do this?
We want to challenge people to think, and we want to challenge them to be able to give an answer for the reason for the hope that lies within them with meekness and fear, but boldly.
So half the shows we're going to be unpacking debunks, or maybe 60% of them. The other 40% is going to be about cultural things, about evergreen things, taking on something and looking at it. But today we are actually going to be talking about our number one. There's no evidence for God. We're going to debunk that. By the way, all these videos are for free on getdebunked.com. We want you to have them for free, to share them, to learn from them, and go for it. So the way we like to start this off is to play the whole video. Then we're going to come back and unpack it. Watch away. Lots of people say there's no evidence for God. Well, we're going to knock that one out in three. I'm just going to have to keep it simple, throw in the old 1-2 combo, get in and out real quick, and let you fine folks chat all about it, okay? Punch one I'm going to call the info uppercut. When's the last time you walked into a library and asked, hey, where are all the books that have been written by mindless products of natural laws? The librarian would probably laugh at you and tell you that no such books exist. They don't exist because they can't exist. Why not? Because first of all, it's just common sense. The words that form the message in books always originate from a person with a brain. Or to say it a bit more scientifically, the message of the book, the purpose, comes to be understood by the orderly placement of the words, design, and information. Information. Now, anytime we find info, these basic laws always apply. Number one, matter doesn't spontaneously produce information. Number two, only a mental source, intelligence, can generate new creative information. In other words, just like those books that couldn't originate without a mind, neither could life. Why not, you ask? Because we know that DNA contains information. Therefore, the laws of information science apply, which means the information in DNA couldn't have spontaneously generated, and that a mind is behind the information. Period. No exceptions. Look at it this way. The simplest life form we know of is an amoeba, and it contains as much information in its DNA as 1,000 complete sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. So, are we to believe that there's no way a message in a library book could spontaneously generate, but far more complicated messages in DNA that contain 1,000 times more information could have? Not likely. You see, when it comes to life or anything else that contains information, the laws of information science confirm the necessity of a creative mind. And guess what? In the very first book of the Bible, it just happens to mention that. In the beginning, God created. Bam! Uppercut lands on the chin. And now here comes the indefensible head blow. We'll call this the Nada Big Bang Bing swing, the KO to the claim that there's no evidence of God, the law of causality, left hook of doom. It goes like this. Everything that had a beginning had a cause. The universe had a beginning, therefore the universe had a cause. Now, either something caused the universe to come into existence, or nothing caused it. I might not be the smartest guy behind the telescope, but honest, practical, everyday thinking's going to lead me to the former. You have to work pretty hard to conjure up a way that nothing did it. You see, it's pretty improbable, nigh impossible, to account for design, information, and cause if the universe just exploded from nothing. Smack! And while we're on the topic, where did the matter come from that exploded? Are we really to believe that there was nothing and then it exploded, and now the exploded nothing is something, and we just happen to be smart enough to discover and understand the very laws that prove the opposite? And if the general understanding of the law of cause and effect is true, how can matter come from a lesser cause like nothing? I mean, come on. I don't have a bunch of letters after my name, but even a monkey knows better. And yeah, I snuck in a couple of extra jabs in there, so sue me. Now for some parting words from our sponsor, the Bible. It tells us in Romans 1:20 that since the creation of the world, God's invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so they are without excuse. It also says that people actually know the truth, but they reject it, which explains why even though there's overwhelming evidence that there is a God, evidence won't convince the unwilling. Sad but true. So there you have it. With just a couple of meaningful blows, the claim that there is no evidence for God is down for the count, mi amigos. In other words, it's been debunked. Adios.
Love it.
I like that one a lot. I don't know. For some reason, you have your favorites of these. And
it's one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, we're going to unpack this thing in 2 episodes. And first, we're going to talk about the argument from design. Right? And then we're also going to be talking about the law of information on this one. And then we're going to talk about
Biggie.
The cause, and then this whole idea of nothing. Right. Because it's really big now. What is nothing? Okay.
Well, because let's put it like this, man. Because there's so much information in here. So when I'm giving my talks, I try to reinforce it, and I'll say something like this. Well, look, Christian and non-Christian, we both have a creator. We both do. And there's some similarities, unfortunately, right? I mean, both of them begin with the letter G. Both of them have 3 letters. Both of them existed for all eternity, have no beginning, no end. Uh-oh, we're in trouble, right? We're all worshiping the same God. Oh, that's another debunk. Well,
You shall not worship another God. Yeah.
But think about this for a second. So you have our God, capital G God, where he has given us his word. He told us what he did. When we look in the world around us, what we see in the world, is it consistent with that or does it contradict it? I mean, we can take and test that. So the other God is, in the beginning, lowercase g, gas. 3 letters, G. So I put it like this. You either have God or you got gas. And if you got gas, Bino will help you. But we're not going to do that in this episode because we're going to go and be nice.
We brought Bino into an episode of DeBunked TV. Somehow we managed to do that. Well, I mean, those are great points. But I think one of the things we should do is we start with the Word of God here. And I think this whole Romans 1:18 is super important. So I just want to read it clearly. I've actually memorized most of this, but not the first part of the last part. So I don't want to just look up and do it out of memory. So I'm going to read it. 1:18. Okay. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who, by their unrighteousness, suppress the truth. Why are they doing that? For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For God's invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since of the creation of the world in the things that have been made. Yep. So they're without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him. And this is what happens when you deny God and suppress the truth. This is why I want to read this, because you get into faulty and futile thinking. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God and give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools, and they exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and creeping things. Have we not seen that everywhere?
Oh, my goodness. Isn't that what we see in the world around us, man? It's everywhere. Yeah. And I put it like this. I think the Scripture even gives us another piece on that in Genesis, when you go back to the very beginning. And it was like, okay, day 4, God creates the sun. And I've got so many people that ask
where's the light? Where's the light?
Yeah, what's the light? What's the light? Yeah. Well, that's all mixed up. It's like, no, God told us there was a light source. What was the light source? We don't have a clue. He didn't tell us that much. But we know what it wasn't. It wasn't the sun, because that didn't come till day 4. But why would he do it on day 4? And I really believe that there's one of these things in there that just cause us to chew on this a little bit. The majority of people on this planet have worshipped something over the years. And one of the major things that they've worshipped is the sun. And I think in that very beginning, God was saying, look.
And or the planets, which is, he just throws that on
astrology
the stars,
and all that.
So he mentioned, that's a great point. I never thought of it that way.
We've been worshiping this stuff. Hey, I'm this sign. What sign are you? And so it's like, and God, in his wisdom, in my humble opinion, is saying, look, why are you worshiping what I created? Why don't you worship me? There's not even going to be a sun in the new heavens and the new earth. You read in Revelation, there's no more sun. There's that light source. So it's like, I think even there in the very beginning, God was setting it up to say, guys, quit worshiping what I made.
I'm going to do it so out of order for you, just to let you know that has zero consequence of who I really am.
Exactly that verse.
I am God.
That's right.
And I created the way that he wanted to. And that's a good point. I think he's always 50,000 layers deep. God's doing stuff. So, I mean, again, we don't make this stuff up.
No.
We don't just go, let's make up a question and debunk it.
Nope.
These people you ask people on the streets, where we're about to go to a mic'd up thing, is there evidence for God? Crazy answers.
Here we go.
Crazy things.
Hey guys, it's Becca B.
JJ Jackson,
We're here on Lake Worth Pier. We're gonna ask people.
where do you think all of this came from?
God.
So our first question is just, where do you think all this came from? How do we all get here?
Oh man. You talking about all of this?
Yeah, just us.
I have no clue.
Sir. You don't know?
I have no clue.
Where do you think all this came from? Evolution, a god? Where do you think we all came from?
I think we came from just Adam and Eve.
Where do you think all this came from?
Where all of this came from?
Just the whole Earth, everything, and the beach, everything.
Aliens.
Aliens? What evidence do you think that there is a God who created all this?
I mean, just the Bible. I mean, who would have read or wrote the Bible if it wasn't true? How would they have come up with all that?
Okay, so What evidence do you think there is that God created all this? What evidence is there?
Probably nothing. But
No evidence.
no evidence. I think it's just what we believe deep down in our persons.
So you don't think it could have came from evolution?
I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, I've watched every scientific channel about how this came to be, how essentially the moon crashed into another planet, and then everything multiplied, and life now exists as we know it.
Do you think there's evidence in the world for God creating everything?
Evidence. I mean, we wouldn't say, like, if we go deep into it, we go and we do a lot of science on it, we could find something. You get me? If we really was to put our mind to it, because if you put your mind to anything, you will do it. You get me? So if we repeatedly do something consistently and we try to find the evidence, then we will.
Do you think there's any evidence for maybe a God creating the earth?
I believe in a higher power, but not necessarily a God, singular God.
This all came about on an epiphany, you know, and that's how we are here today.
Maybe like multiple gods. Ben?
I'm going to plead the fifth on that one.
Fair enough. You don't think there's any basis for evolution?
Some ways I like to think that, you know, because of the science person that I am, you know.
You don't think that conflicts with believing in God then?
I do.
Yeah, I think that we all came from something greater than just one man.
Interesting stuff, as always, when you
that's
get
the
out
world we
there.
live in.
Okay, so we're going to get into the design thing, and I think let's just take over, and because you got some material we went through, and I just want to go for it.
I mean, you can see that people are really struggling with this evidence for God thing, but I'm going to say to you that even the smart people understand. They can see it, but they can't see it. And that's because until the Holy Spirit pulls the scales off of our eyes, I mean, that's who I was.
Well, there's again, back to Romans, they suppress it because of an unrighteousness. Most of the time, that's a moral thing. I don't want you infringing on me, so I don't want there to be a God because I want to have sex, money, or power.
I'll do whatever
so
I want, man.
Do something, and so I have to go backwards in just basic reasoning. And that's what I want to get at most of this stuff here. We don't like arguments. I don't like to get in fights with people and go back and forth. We just want to be reasonable. What is the most reasonable inference you get from the evidence you see? When you wake up in the morning and you look up or talk to a friend or have a feeling for your mother or your kid, where does this come from?
Right.
I mean, what is this just a reasonable, if you're just going to look at it and go, really, it's gas? That made, that formed a rock, and then the rock formed consciousness, and then life came out. You just it gets absurd. So, if you don't have the right starting point of thinking from God, it just gets absurd.
Changes everything.
Even if you're brilliant.
Absolutely. I put it like this, Christian and non-Christian, we all have the same evidence.
Yeah.
We've all got the same rocks, same stars, same people. Why do we understand and explain the evidence so differently? Yeah. Has nothing to do with evidence. It has everything to do with the starting point or the worldview. Yeah. And even I'm going to say to you that even the non-Christian can see that there is evidence to support the fact.
When you're talking about design, it's a hard one to get away from. And
it is.
And people, they say all kinds of things.
They try to tap dance around it.
But
and
it's like it comes right back to them saying it. But
take a look at what Dawkins said here. Biology is the study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose.
Biology is the study of complicated things.
Yeah.
It's already complicated, right? There's
Absolutely.
complexity.
Exactly.
Not simple little things that just pop up that give the appearance.
Yeah.
When things, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, we're basically
it might be an alligator.
These lights behind you gives the appearance that somebody hung them.
Yeah.
But did somebody really hang them, Carl?
I heard an interesting quote. I won't say who I heard it from, but he made this quote and it had nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about here. But he said, if you're walking down a dirt road and you find a turtle sitting up on a wooden fence post, you know somebody put it there. You can look up who said that. It goes back, man.
I get to see the turtle going up.
You know somebody put it there. They see it as well.
Yeah.
Richard Dawkins sees that what you see in the world around us, it appears that it's designed.
Not even just designed, but for a purpose.
And for a purpose.
Like, wow.
And that's what God tells us, that we are here for a purpose.
Because if evolution were true, There's no, it's undirected. There is no purpose. And it's
That's
all
your
accidental.
wiring, man. You do your wiring, I
Yeah.
do my wiring, and that's all.
But he's actually including, it's so powerful that he has to say, well, it appears that way.
And we're going to challenge and say, look, if you look at something and there's a turtle on a fence post, you know somebody put it there. That's what we see.
Yeah,
the rest
this is
of
the
stuff.
simple stuff I like to talk about. It's like, come on, we're not trying. I don't have degrees. I'm not like this. It's like turtle on tree stumps or things.
Yep.
That's great for me.
Well, see, I'm that son of a professional wrestler growing up around guys with one name, Crusher, Bruiser, Mauler, Assassin. We're not going to get deep.
Yep.
And even this one, take a look at this next one here. You got biologists must constantly keep in mind that what they see was not designed, but rather evolved.
So go against your better intuition and your innate ability to kind of just understand that things are.
Suppress the truth.
Yeah. And this is Francis Crick, right?
Yeah.
So biologists, of course, because they're studying, they're doing the most of the study on all the life forms.
Right.
Those guys, above all, have to constantly fight against this. No, because we have an a priori for evolution. We have to dismiss that there's design.
This is not an evidence problem.
Yeah.
This is an interpretation of evidence problem, and your interpretation is going to be based on what your worldview, your bias, your presupposition is. And we've just got to keep coming back to that and getting the generation to recognize you've got to think critically, like we talked about in one of the other episodes. You've got to think critically. You've got to look at this stuff. And then here's another good one. A common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics as well as chemistry and biology.
Sir Fred Hoyle here, who is a British astronomer. All these brilliant guys studying the stuff. He comes up with it. I love the first part. That's what we're really talking about.
Exactly right.
And where we said it in the debunk. Come on, I don't have a lot of letters after my name, but you look at this stuff, it just screams of God and design. It is common sense.
It is common sense. Yeah. And so these arguments that we're using and showing, to me, really don't take a genius to figure that out. You can look at this stuff and know there had to be something involved. And we're just staying superficial here. I mean, it can get really deep.
Oh yeah, it can go on and on and on. But I think if you were to look just at how things are supposed to evolve, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have natural selection on top of mutations that very little at a time adapt onto something that was already there.
Right.
So which means if that's going on, a second thing and a third thing and a fourth thing and a fifth thing and a sixth thing that all have to work together to get one thing can't work. They can't work together. It's like Behe's irreducible complexity, right? You get a mousetrap, and you take any part of that out, it's not a mousetrap anymore, and it can't function.
Oh.
And without any functioning of the mousetrap piece, right?
Yeah. But Bub, you take the trigger out that holds the mechanism up, and there's one professor that used this.
Yes.
He walks in and he uses it as a tie clip, and see, it does have a purpose as a tie clip. But you still didn't explain where the wood came from, where the spring came from, where the metal came from, and by the way, how it all got stuck together.
But you made it a purpose. But I'm just still saying someone had to craft that together.
Absolutely.
The point is, he couldn't have he had to clip it together.
Exactly.
A human mind clipped it together using all of its parts.
Exactly.
So no matter where you go, the whole idea is that to naturally select, it has to be there, and it has to have a purpose forward. So multiple functions working together already seems to be a massively improbable thing. If you think of think of the human body, right? You have some stuff on all the systems.
You think about this. 10 major systems are responsible for the body's function. And when you look at those 10 systems there, you've got reproductive, cardiovascular. It goes on and on and on. I'm not going to get deep, but I'm going to say it like this. You take any one of those out, none of the rest are going to be worth a whole lot. Yeah. You've got your skeletal structure, but think about this. What good is a skeletal structure without the muscles to keep all the skeleton together and give it the ability to move? Yeah. But what good are the muscles and the skeleton if you don't have the cardiovascular, so that now you're breathing and you're moving life through this thing? And what good is that if you don't? Guys, this thing is amazing. Forget just taking the eye and what Darwin had to say about the eye.
It's already incredible, yeah.
That's just one piece. Take all 10 of these pieces and put them together. That's too deep. I can't do it. Brain, most complex structure in the known universe. Secular quote.
Yeah.
I can't talk to you about the brain, but I can talk to you about something like mucus.
Mucus.
Mucus is awesome,
It's
dude.
not. It's not awesome. It is. It's not.
Mucus is awesome. I want you to think about this.
Yes, I will say this. Mucus is awesome.
We need T-shirts.
Yeah,
Mucus.
perfect. Yeah, that's what I want to be seen as that.
Hey, we would not be here without mucus. This is how important it is. And think about this for a second. A car, an automobile, in order for it to drive thousands of miles, it has an air filter. Why? Because it's collecting all these particles before they get into the engine to destroy the engine. Well, guess what? We have an air filter. It's called mucus. It's awesome. All right, so now in our lungs we have mucus that catches the air particles. That's great. No, that's really bad. Because if your lungs fill up with mucus,
get pneumonia or die or something.
you're dead,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So we're all dead. Nobody's here because our lungs are all filled with mucus. No, 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 no. It's an amazing stroke of luck because what happened is over millions of years, all right, you got these tiny hair in your lung called cilia, all right? And those cilia just so happen, they all beat in sequence in the right direction. Because if they were beating all different directions, we're all dead. Can't get the mucus out. So they all beat, driving the mucus up to our throat here so we can change our air filter. That's great. No, we're dead.
You're dead if that happens.
The mucus, man. The mucus is too sticky. It's too heavy. Those tiny cilia can't move the mucus, so none of us are here. Because here it is. It's an amazing stroke of luck. Over millions of years, we got a layer of water inside of our lung that just goes to the right depth, so it just gets to the point where the tip of that cilia breaks the plane of the water. The mucus just so happens to float on water, so when the tip of the cilia hits the bottom of the mucus, it drives it up so we can change our air filter. By the way, have you ever gone into the doctor and said, hey, I think I'm running a quart low, can we get how does that happen, guys? I mean, forget about all that.
Forget about
all that.
Mucus, you're dead.
Yeah,
and
without
how
mucus.
complex is that? Well, I love it when you say that, the right left-handedness and then the up, everything. I mean, how does that get designed? How does that get built?
Your eyes, in order to see, I don't care how bored you are right now, the fact that you can hear this presentation is a gift from God. Your eyes, in order to see anything that's not moving, have tiny muscles attached to your eyes that twitch your eyes 30 to 70 times, hear me, a second. Your eyes are twitching 30 to 70 times a second, and you couldn't tell it. Twitch. You couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You couldn't do it.
You can't. Yeah, you can't.
It does it automatically because if they don't twitch, you don't see anything that's not moving. It would just disappear. It'd be like the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. You have to turn your head to see anything that's not moving. That'd be a bad life, man. We're walking through life. Hey, how y'all doing?
That's how we develop all our cameras, even all the stuff that we see in the design. So,
guys,
brilliant.
Forget about all of this. This is deep.
Give us the mucus.
This is
Give
deep.
us the eyes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in summary to this section, we could go on and on about the design stuff, but this is interesting. This is Greenstein, and he says, as we survey all the evidence, the thought insistently arises that some supernatural agency, he puts it in a small a, but then he goes, no, wait a second, rather capital agency must be involved. Is it possible that suddenly, without intending to, we have stumbled upon scientific proof of the existence of a supreme being? Was it God who stepped in and so providentially crafted the cosmos for our benefit? It's a good question. My answer is yes, of course it is. But that's we're going to move into the information section now, and which I love.
Yes.
And we'll go to some prominent guys. Look up here. This is Mr. Gates. Human DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software we've ever created.
Yep.
Dr. Gitt. Now, who's Dr. Gitt? Tell me about this guy.
Werner Gitt's a neat guy, man. I had the privilege of doing a couple conferences with him, and he is like an information specialist, a German professor, very, very respected. His book is in the beginning, Information.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So here's what he says. Because information is required for all life processes, get that, required for all life processes, it can be stated unequivocally that information is an essential characteristic of all life. All efforts to explain life processes in terms of physics and chemistry will always be unsuccessful. This is the fundamental problem confronting present-day biology, which is based on evolution. The way I look at it is simple. You think of a computer program. Let's go back to the Bill Gates thing. DNA is 1,000 times more complicated than a computer program. We know that it takes a what to make a program? Programmers.
Yep. This
is simple stuff. A guy's sitting there and he's writing code. Code is the language, just like the DNA language. It's bits of information, ones and zeros, thought through with all this types of program. Now, if I introduce random stuff into a program, what happens?
Good stuff.
No, it crashes. You've done it before. Your computers fall apart. You do one little thing wrong on your phone. You got to reshut it down because that means something got in there. And you introduce a virus to it's completely gone. Right? So the same thing is how we look at how did this all of this arise.
Right.
It has to have information from an outside source coming in and saying, I'm going to program this to have a function so that X and Y can happen. And so multiple diversities of thing. Each system has its own DNA.
Yeah.
I mean, the lizard, the human, everything has its own blueprint, right? And it's programmed in. And if you put wrong functions, it's gone. So it can't have evolved.
Right.
Just, I mean, if you just think of the astronomical numbers it takes to build a protein out.
Let me give you a piece on this, man.
Yeah.
Another buddy that I had the privilege of meeting is a former professor at Cornell University, and genetics is his thing.
Yeah.
And so he came in, he heard me speak once, and I'm like, he came up to me afterwards, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I need to listen to you speak, you know? I'm the son of a professional wrestler. And he said, no, I just want to hear you speak. He said, Carl, talking about the mechanism that you're talking about here, this design and all this, mutation, that's the mechanism. Give enough mutation over time, this thing can turn into this thing, can turn into this thing. He said, whenever anybody tells me that, he's a geneticist. He said, Carl, every generation, your children have 100 more significant genetic mistakes than the previous generation. Every generation. So those are significant. There's a whole bunch more.
Yeah.
But every generation has 100 significant more genetic mutations. He said, anybody that tells me that mutation is the mechanism by which we got a worm to turn into a fish, to turn into a reptile, to turn into a rat, to turn into a wolf, to go back into the ocean to become a blue whale. That's the same as telling me you take a 1968 Volkswagen Beetle, put it in your driveway, go out every day with a ball peen hammer and hit it 100 times, and think in 1,000 years you're going to have a Porsche. It's exactly the opposite.
It's the opposite direction.
Yeah,
it's going
the
the opposite direction.
direction.
We're losing information. Entropy is actually pulling it away and moving us more to chaos. It's not the other way around. So how in the world is the biological world is the only thing that's moving against it when everything else around it is pulling you the other way?
It's unbelievable. And so when Dr. Gitt talks on DNA and the information and what it shows, I got only one thing, man. I'm like, thank you, Jesus. You're amazing.
So next time we're going to get into cause and this whole idea of nothing, but hopefully that helped you unpack the first two things we're talking about in Debunk number 1. Go back and watch that. Use this however you need to. Pass it on. Share this stuff. And, go to getdebunked.com and follow us on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. Get the word out. We're trying to give all this stuff for free for people like you to use it to the glory of God and the benefit and blessing of others. Adios from DeBunked TV.
See ya.